Welcome back to another Zero Context Patreon Snark. Advertising my Patreon content one out of context theater moment at a time. Starting off the month by completely zipping through the final installment of the Up in the Air series, Grounded. Then I jumped into a new series, Hex Hall. I wrapped up the month by starting a questionably dark romance called Notice. I'm not denying that love makes everybody a better version of themselves. What I'm calling bullshit on is that James is somehow a better person after having known B, especially after the literal 7-day period that they were together and then B broke up with him for a month. Like, geez, get the hell over yourself. Don't keep the house just for me, Bianca. Don't do it just because of your old plans. You won't be homeless again, even if you think things won't work out with James. You don't need to keep that place to have a sense of security. Life won't be like that again. We can't live our lives always thinking that it will, always bracing for it. And commitment for you won't be what it was for your mother because James wasn't your father. You can't keep comparing them and you can't keep treating a good thing like a potential disaster. That's no kind of a life. The only reason why I wouldn't keep that house would have nothing to do with my relationship with a billionaire. It would be because my shitfuck, murderous, abusive dad knows where it is. There's literally no way that B still feels safe there after he pushed his way in. It's funny how Xavier's talking about how he doesn't want drama, and yet he went out of his way to hang out with a man that he described as being obsessed with him, who he claims kissed him to get a reaction because he thinks it's funny. If you don't like the drama, stay away from the theater. See, the Playboy pilot, Damien, hooked up with the flight attendant, Jessa. He's kind of into her, but she knows that his heart is mainly reserved for B. He wants to hook back up with her, but she calls him out on his shit, that he needs to work on himself a hell of a lot more and to get the hell over B before attempting to replacement goldfish B with Jessa. This is not a martini, this is a Midol-tini because I'm on the rag, folks, and it is a heavy flow day. When you go down on a girl on her period for the first time, that's called earning your red rings, and I'm going to earn my red rings with you. I had to read this, and so do you. We'd been in a homeless shelter, but neither of us had lingered. At our age, if you stayed around people that wanted to help you for too long, it was inevitable that they would try to help you find your parents. It was always a good-natured intention, but almost insulting in its way. I get where the adults are coming from, but at the same time, teens don't simply hang around a homeless shelter for funsies, nor do they run away from home for funsies. There's probably a good reason why they're living on the streets. Then the author glossed over Bee's and Stefan's happy furlough party. Again, the entire thing felt like the author is bored with her own story. Stuff that she would have spent at least a chapter on is now like, we had a party, it was fun. I'm not complaining about not being able to read about the party, but my complaint is that when it's obvious that the author is bored with her own work, it makes the readers bored too. Like, why should I care when it's obvious the author doesn't? They go to LA for the opening of her gallery. They do a walkthrough of it the night before. Then the actual opening is again glossed over. Why the fuck should I care about this when the author clearly doesn't give a shit? For more than 2 pages, there's literally not a single line of dialogue. All of this is simply told to us in the most passive, boring way possible. It could have been anything. A neighbor had been working on building something on his back patio earlier, and that had been much louder than the single slam had been. What about that noise was troubling me so much? Probably because this stupid book is almost over and B's literally homicidal father still has yet to be brought to justice. This book isn't trying to be subtle about what's going to happen. I don't know shit about being shot mercifully, but I'm pretty sure that you would not be awake for days after being shot in the head. Was she shot in the head? I don't actually know. The narration was pretty spotty about where she was actually shot. If I had a nickel for every time that a supernatural girl went to a boarding school for bad teens in Georgia, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that I happened to find 2 books in this really specific niche. Sophia, Miss Casanoff said in her southern lilt, turning my relatively simple name into something that sounded like an exotic appetizer at a Chinese restaurant. I go by Sophie, I said quickly, hoping to avoid being known forever as Sophia. I had to read this, and so do you. And we could teach you so much about being a dark witch. No offense, but you seem like you could use the help. I'll, think about it, okay? I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut inches from my face. Suddenly a wind seemed to blow through the room and the pictures on the wall rattled. When I turned back to the girls, all 3 of them were smiling at me, their hair rippling around their faces like they were underwater. The one lamp in the room flickered and went out. I could just make out silvery traces of light passing under the girls' skin like mercury. Even their eyes were glowing. They began to levitate, the tips of their Hecate-issue loafers barely brushing the mossy carpet. Now they weren't homecoming queens or supermodels. They were witches, and very dangerous ones at that. Yep, this is 100% going to convince somebody to join your coven. The guy next to her, he's the vamp, Jenna said through a mouthful of pie. She pointed to a really good-looking guy in his 30s with black curly hair. Lord Byron. I snorted. Oh God, how angsty can you be, naming yourself after a dead poet? But Jenna just looked at me. No, he's the real Lord Byron. You know what? Why the fuck not? Before he goes, Sophie points out that there are dangerous supernaturals in the world too, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows and singing kumbaya for the supernaturals. He warns her not to say stuff like that around there and leaves. But Elodie cut in. She's super vain, so if you get in trouble, compliment her on her tattoos. Tattoos? I asked. Up close, the greenhouse was even bigger than I thought. What the hell had they grown in it? Redwoods? She has these really pretty purple tattoos all over her arms. They're magical symbols of some kind, like runes or something, Elodie continued. She's really proud of them. Say you like them and you're in for life with the Vandy. I'm waiting for these girls to do something, frame Sophie, and get her into trouble. And then when Sophie tries to say something about the teacher's tattoos, the teacher gets really upset about the entire thing. That seems about right. What say you? Don't know about blocking spells, don't know about tattoos, don't know about big, stupid, evil Italian eyes, don't know about dad, don't know anything about being a witch, don't know. I honestly feel so sorry for Sophie right now, that because of whatever bad blood went down when Sophie was conceived means that her mother has been hiding Sophie from what sounds like good 90% of her actual heritage. Like, I get that he was scary or that he did something evil towards Grace, something that made her want to break off all and any contact, but she chose to have the baby. She chose to hide the baby from her father. She chose not to tell Sophie fucking anything about her heritage. My dad is the head of the council, I said before she could even finish her hello. I heard her sigh. Oh, Sophie, I wanted to tell you. Hooray for shitty parents hiding important information from their kids! She gives it back to Jenna and tells her friend to not only have her burnt hand looked at, but to report this to Mrs. C. Jenna insists that it would only make things worse. Jenna then vamps out and not really attacks Sophie. She apologizes profusely seconds later with the excuse that it happens sometimes when she's stressed. The more I got to know him, the more wrong his dating Elodie seemed. He'd sworn there was more to Elodie than met the eye, but in the 2 months I'd been at Hecate, practically the only thing I'd heard her talk about were spells for making your hair shinier or freckles disappear. I'm all for hidden depths of characters, but the problem is that, again, Sophie is saying what she wants to see here. She hasn't had an actual conversation with Elodie. Yes, I'm quite aware that this is a shitty young adult fantasy novel and that Elodie is being set up to be the cliché mean girl. Thank you for that reminder. Anyway, if you've been watching me at all over the past 6 weeks, you've probably picked up on the fact that I don't have any great power. I'm like the least powerful witch here. Clearly the awesome family superpowers pass this gal by. It's not that she's not powerful, it's that her human mother hid her magical powers from her, hid her heritage from her. She's untrained, not unpowerful. And then I thought of Elodie, Chaston, and Anna glowing and levitating in the library. They had looked like goddesses. Even though I'd been scared, I'd envied them. The problem is that what they were doing there was nothing but service magic, stuff meant to look flashy. It's not real power. If you want showmanship, go to Vegas. Is Elodie mad at you or something? I ventured. Running a hand through his hair, he sighed and said, I guess. She told me I should be glad because now I could spend the ball with the person I really wanted. Tell me that your relationship is toxic trash without telling me. The time for bickering about dresses and boys is over. 2 of your sisters were severely injured and another is dead. But you fixed it, Elodie said softly. You kicked out the vampires. Elodie is seriously touched in the head if she thinks that removing Jenna and Lord Byron is instantly going to resolve all of their problems. That's true, but it's also true that we would know if such a thing was on school grounds. Would you, though? Would you really? Alice has already stated that the council literally sent witch hunters onto the island to unalive her. Nobody seems to know about that. You'll like him, Mom said. He's very charming and very smart. I know that he'll be thrilled to see you. Then why hasn't he tried to see me before? I mean, I get when I was little and you didn't want us hanging out, but what about after I came into my powers? You think that he could have spared a visit somewhere in there? Mom got quiet before finally saying, Sophie, your dad has his reasons, but they're his to tell, not mine, and he loves you. He's got a super terrible way of showing it. Ah, yes, Mr. Truman, Clinton tells him with a chuckle. This is the owner's assistant. Will she be my assistant as well? Mr. Truman questions, hope flickering in his weasel eyes. No, she belongs to Mr. Maxwell. This book has one thing, and goddammit, it's gonna stick to it. This woman, whom I didn't even know, is pissed at me, as if I personally wronged her. I'm careful about the women I sleep with. I have certain requirements, certain expectations. This is your assistant, Miss Simmons. She's been bringing you coffee and doing other administrative tasks for you for 6 years. Unbelievable, she huffs. How the hell is somebody this self-absorbed to the point that they literally don't even notice their own personal assistant? The woman who schedules your meetings and brings you breakfast, lunch, tea, and dinner. Cheese. I cannot. How careless was she to go off and get drunk with that asshole Solante? I agree with him, but not for the same reasons. Grayson is simply jealous that she would go get drunk with somebody else. Me, as I said in yesterday's post, it's because this girl is so worried about being found by her ex, and yet she went and got so blackout drunk that she didn't even know who was in the cab with her. I love how he needs to mansplain the things that he's asking for her to help with. At this point, I'm surprised that he's not trying to read for her, what with assuming that she is too dumb to do that. If it weren't for not wanting to cause a scene, I'd run right over there and give him a piece of my mind. Holy guacamole on toast, girl. You refusing to grow a spine is exactly why you keep ending up in situations like this. Also, women keeping silent about the abuse we suffer from men is why men keep being allowed to get away with it. Her breath evens out, though, and I set to sliding her panties off the rest of the way. Instead of relinquishing the lingerie, I keep it as a token. I inhale the fabric, my mouth watering at her unique scent before I shove them into my pocket. I snag her phone from the charger and take it with me into the kitchen. In the dark, I rummage around until I find a bowl of fruit on the counter. I settle at the bar stool and begin peeling the orange as I flip through her phone. Right, she's not going to notice how both her pennies and an orange are missing. You can support me on Patreon for only $1 a month and read the context for all of these. Plus, supporters also get early access to my regular snark. I'll see you next month, guys.